Well, I'm joined by Justin Doherty, a government crisis advisor and someone that knows all about the strange and mysterious world of messaging. Welcome, Justin, to Talking Pints.
Thanks, Nigel. Cheers.
And good to have somebody on who is a devotee of the great English pub and enjoys a drink himself. We don't get many of those for some reason. Now, Justin, you quite conventionally served a long time in the British Army. The crisis in the Balkans and all of that. I say conventionally because what you've been doing ever since, a lot of our people at home won't quite understand it, but you went off to work with Lord Bell, who, of course, was an extraordinary figure, wasn't he, in terms of helping shape Margaret Thatcher's career, messaging, and many other things. I mean, are you a sort of glorified spin doctor, really?
No, I think the best way to describe what we do is we work in this complicated information space, and things used to be quite straightforward. A generation ago, there was newspapers and authority figures that would help us sort of know what we should think. Things have changed fundamentally in the last 15 years. The advent of digital and social media means that we're now all part of that information environment, whether we like it or not. And it affects our lives and it affects the world that we live in. And what we do is we help people navigate that complicated environment.
And you've helped some quite important people, haven't you? Ugandan prime ministers and presidents of countries. And I guess for them, a lot of it's about their reputation, isn't it? About how the public sees them, about how their country is seen as well.
Reputation matters. It matters to people because at the heart of things, your reputation is the thing that allows you to achieve your goals. If you have a poor reputation or if you're misunderstood, it's very difficult to get things done. And really what reputation management is about is helping make sure that people are consistent in what they say and what they do. And
that must be very difficult working with politicians around the world.
If I went around saying that I could run a 3-hour marathon and I was 20 stone and a bit flabby, then that would have no credibility. So a lot of it is about making sure that what we say is aligned with what we do, and that lies at the heart of all of this.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of took on the British establishment, because they all wanted to be in the EU. I mean, every one of them, every paper, every business leader, every trade union. It changed, of course, as the years went on. But I found this, you take on the establishment, and you're just trashed by everybody. And, of course, as social media grew during those years, it got even harder. What does someone do when they're really in a crisis? A leader, a politician, a business figure? It happens to businesses too. I mean, reputations can fall. Amazing how business reputations can fall so quickly. What does one do when one's Dennis Healey once said, "When in a hole, stop digging." I mean, what would your advice to Rishi Sunak be today?
Oh, gosh. I mean, He is in a real pickle. He's facing a real problem at the moment. And of course, his mistake was to be inconsistent. That point that I was making earlier about what you say and what you do. If you are going out there and telling the country that they need to tighten their belts, that lives are getting more difficult, that people are suffering because of cost of living,
taxes are going up,
and you're not doing that, that is utterly inconsistent, and this is at the heart of all of this. We could say the same about Boris. Boris hosting parties. I don't really care that much whether Boris hosts parties or not, but a lot of people do, and the reason a lot of people care is because there is an inconsistency there. So there's a very straightforward thing that we often do, or we always do with our clients, and we look at what they do and we look at what they say, and if they're not in alignment, then you're going to have a problem.
No, I can see that. And, of course, the charge of hypocrisy perhaps being the worst inconsistency that people can put up with. This whole development, Justin, of social media, this explosion of Twitter, Facebook, and many, many others. And there is no doubt, seems to me, that the more conservative voices have struggled over the course of the last couple of years. I mean, like him or not, Donald Trump, and I was at Mar-a-Lago on Thursday night seeing him, he's banned from Twitter, but the leadership of the Taliban, the day they retook Kabul, are on Twitter. This is a real problem, isn't it? It's a real problem if the centre-right voices are not getting a fair hearing.
Yeah, let's not fool ourselves into thinking that everything is about Twitter and Facebook.
No,
they are
no,
important,
that's a
of
fair
course,
point.
and they're important because, for example, Twitter helps journalists who write the newspapers.
It's a shortcut.
Work out what to write about and what to think. So it has its role, but 2/3 of the Russian population only get their information from state sources. They only get their information from state television. So I think we have to look at all of this in the round and make sure that we're not getting distracted, as the media often does, by certain sources such as Twitter.
And of course, there is a massive, at least I think, there's a massive information war that we're in the midst of, right at this very moment in time, where President Zelensky, dressed in his fatigues, addressing the UN and the British Parliament and the Joint House of Congress in America, and kind of, I suppose in one way, being painted out to be a complete and utter hero. I mean, the sort of the new Churchill, all of that. Putin, very clearly being painted out by broad mainstream media to be the devil and talk of war crimes trials and Nuremberg 2.0 and all the rest of it. And yet, Ukraine is far from perfect as a country. We know that. Corruption, I think one of the most corrupt countries in the world, one of the great money laundering sites in the places in the world. Is there a legacy of the far right in parts of Ukraine? I think there almost certainly is. But what are we to believe and not to believe as to what's coming out here?
Yes.
How does the person sitting at home work out what's true and what's not? Because it's been difficult, I think.
And this is really important, and it's going to be even more important in the years to come, because there is no doubt about the fact that we are in an information war. We're all part of this information war, whether we like it or not, and our actions have consequences in this information war. So in an information war, three things happen. The first thing that happens is there's a battle for control of the narrative. Who's right, who's wrong, who's winning, who's losing, who are the good guys, who are the bad guys. And we can see this in Ukraine at the moment. The other thing that tends to happen in information war is that you get disinformation, you get attempts to muddy the water, to confuse people. And of course, Putin is a master of this, and it is part of his strategy to create that confusion, because guess what happens? If there's confusion, then we don't know who to support. We don't know whether... And actually, we choose not to get involved. So, they're both as bad as each other, aren't they? Look at all this. It's somebody else's problem. It helps to get people to take their eye off the ball. And then the final thing, and I think this is going to be the really important part in the years to come, is, what are the long-term goals and objectives? What is our purpose? What are we fighting for? And I think that's where we, in the West and here, have taken our eye off the ball. Mm-hmm. I don't think we know what we're fighting for. I don't think we have a clear sense of our long-term goals. We don't have a really clear sense of what we're fighting for. And with that, we don't have a sense of, if we're fighting for this, what are we prepared to give up? And you made the point earlier about us funding the Russian war machine with $1 billion worth of gas.
A day. You couldn't invent this stuff, could you?
It's astonishing. We are literally funding this war. The Germans take 40% of their energy comes from Putin's gas. We could stop this tomorrow by turning off our heating 3 days a week and having cold showers.
Come on. That really is pushing it, isn't it? I mean, the thought of cold showers, Justin.
Giving up our beer money, I don't know.
But that wouldn't really help us, would it, in this country? Because we don't buy... We buy about 4% of our gas, I think, from Russia. But Germany needs gas because it needs to power its factories. And we need gas because we've gone so far down the wind turbine route that when there's an anticyclone, the wretched things don't turn, and gas is the only way we can quickly, fill and plug that gap. Thinking about the information war, let's say I am living in the suburbs of Moscow, and I'm out of the house from 8 o'clock in the morning till 7 in the evening doing my job, whatever I do. I haven't got a huge amount of time, but I've got the state television I can watch. I've got whatever newspapers I can get. If I'm living there, presumably I can get whatever I want on the internet or not.
It's it's tricky, and it's tricky because what both sides have started doing, it's not just the Russians, but it's us as well. We have started to make it difficult, or countries, governments make it difficult for ordinary citizens to access what they need to. And, it's not just as simple as just shutting down YouTube or TikTok or whatever.
Yeah.
I had a go at accessing one of the Russian news portals this afternoon. I couldn't do it. So we are being denied on both sides.
Elon Musk talked about this, didn't he? Elon Musk said, whatever you think of these Russian news sites, people should be able to access them.
Well, this is the point. We should be the judges and the arbiters of what's information, what's disinformation. We don't need the state to worry that we can't cope with that level of information. If we go down that path, we're going down a very Orwellian path. So to answer your question, your average Russian citizen will not access the things that we look at. They won't look at the news portals we look at. Russian TV is a very peculiar and particular thing, and it is dominated by the Ukraine war at the moment. And very cleverly, the television stations have... one of the things they do very cleverly is that they appropriate the things that we do and apply them very, very quickly. So what the Russians are now doing on television is micro-targeting and appealing to different sections in Russian society. An astrology show for housewives in the afternoon, it seems very innocuous and not particularly serious. But in there will be information about the Russian perspective on the war, and that's what's happening in Russia at the moment.
Sounds rather like Radio 4 trying to overthrow Brexit. Doing
Listening to Woman's Hour.
Doing it through the food programme or whatever it was. Justin, interesting conversation. You raised some very, very big points there, that this information war, we're all part of it. It isn't going away. And what we should and shouldn't believe needs a great degree of discernment. Thank you for joining me.
Cheers, Nigel.
Talking Pints. Thank you.